وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الحكيم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على دين كله ولو كره المشركون. آمنا بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Your second salawat for love of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. And your loudest salawat for ta'ajeel faraj sahib al-asr wa zaman. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بذكرنا المسائب آل Muhammad. May Allah increase in our rewards for commemorating the difficulties of Ahlul Bayt. Our discussion has been around the concept of understanding divine justice. One of the unique attributes of Madhab Ja'fari is that we believe in the presence and the authority of Allah on this earth right now. The question comes in a variety of fashions when we look at the concept of justice, is that how can Allah be just if there is an authority but we don't see Him? Why does this authority have to be present? And what's the role and significance of this entire concept of Mahdawiyat and Imamat and guidance to be present on this earth? There is a variety of different ways and different explanations that are tied to the presence of our Imam, the need for our Imam, and the impact of our Imam even in this time period. And the goal of tonight's conversation is to understand, is this really true? What is the goal of this? And how do we understand that both our Imam is present, why he is absent from us, how we are connected to him, and what is our role and responsibility in this time period? With that, we'll answer some questions about our 12th Imam with your loudest of salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. First and foremost, how do we know that there is an Imam that remains, or there has to be an authority of Allah on this earth? There are two ways of understanding this. First and foremost, understand who was the first creation of Allah? Adam. The first insan that Allah put on this earth, our forefather, when Allah wanted to put insan on this earth, He put Adam. When He places Adam on this earth, He says not only is Adam insan, he is the Khalifa of Allah, he is the authority and representative of Allah. This item or this action, Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa, is not to say that Allah just said, I'm going to put man on this earth. He says, I'm going to put a divine authority on this earth. How do we know the extent of the fact that Khalifa, as Allah describes for Adam, is a divine authority? Well, understand something. Why did the Malaika question Allah then, if it wasn't the fact that authority and divinely appointed authority was being placed on this earth? The Malaika describe and say, أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا وَيُسْفِكُ الدِّمَاءِ. You're going to put someone as the authority over this earth who is going to then spill blood and cause fasad and strife in this earth? This complaint of the Malaika is an explanation to say that how could this insan be in charge of the earth when insan can cause fasad? How can this insan be a divine representative when this insan has a tendency to cause trouble? That entire conversation that takes place is a demonstration to show that when Allah wants to put humanity, the first thing He places on this earth is a divine representative. Meaning that as long as humanity remains on this earth, a divine representative has to be present. But look at, for example, our time. How can we say a divine representative is present when I can't see the divine representative? Let me ask you something. How many of you have seen the president in person? You guys live near DC. What, you don't walk out there and see an orange-haired man walking around? How many of you have seen the presidents of, for example, Russia or Portugal or Argentina or any of these places? But do you have certainty that these people exist? We would say that the effectiveness of a president is not because you can see the president of the country, but because the order exists within that country. That must mean that there is someone in charge of maintaining that order in the country. When, for example, someone comes to America, we say that America is a governed society even if I don't see the governor himself. I may have never seen the governor. I may have never seen the president. The impact of the president is not by seeing him. It's by the fact that order exists in the society, that people say, had there been no government, this place would have been in chaos. Apply that same principle to the authority of Allah. For me to believe the authority of Allah is present, it does not rely on the fact that I saw the Imam. I can talk to the Imam. I can sit with the Imam. Rather, what we would say, if there is order in the existence of Allah's creation, and the creation persists correctly, then there is a divine authority over it, ensuring that the balance and order remains intact. This is why when we talk about the Imam, we call the Imam Hujjatullahi ala al-ard, the authority of Allah on this earth. That today, if you see this earth operate and function, if you see that reality makes sense, that science and rules follow, that means that the nizam and order that Allah created, and He puts someone over it, that authority remains, therefore the order remains. The significance of knowing an authority is present is not seeing it. It's seeing the impact of the authority present. Now the question remains that the finality of messengership, the finality of Risala has been revealed to us. We possess what Allah has said, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي. The ni'mah has been completed. The religion has been perfected. Then why do I need an authority of Allah on this earth? Why does it have to be that Allah has remained a wali over this earth in this situation? To understand that, you have to look and see that there are promises Allah has made to humanity in the Quran. And for the Quran to be truthful, those promises have yet to be fulfilled. The verse we began our discussion with, that Allah repeats twice, in chapter 9 and chapter 61, Allah makes a statement and He says, هُوَ الَّذِي أَرْسَلَ رَسُولَهُ بِالْهُدَى وَدِينِ الْحَقِّ لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ. That I have sent down this messenger with guidance and the religion of truth, دين الحق, لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ, so that this religion overcomes all other religions. From the time of Rasulullah until today, have you found that Islam has overcome all other religions? No, it has not. Meaning that Allah has made a promise in the Quran that has not yet come true. One of the reasons the authority of Allah has to remain on this earth is to fulfill the promises Allah has made in the Quran the way Allah wants to see them fulfilled. So the responsibility of the Imam to demonstrate the completion of the message, to prove the truth and veracity of the message, is required that an Imam is present. The second reason that an Imam has to be present is because Allah in Islam has given us wajibat and commands to perform. Now these commands that Allah gives us as part of the religion of Islam is not just to fast and to pray. The fasting and the prayer is definitely amongst the wajibat. But these wajibat are shakhsi in the sense that it's the relationship of the individual and his individual relationship with Allah. Meaning I don't need a society to fast. I don't need a society to pray. But the other element that Allah has dictated as part of the religion is mu'amilat, and the relationship between man and society, where Allah in the religion of Islam has provided and given us ahkam and responsibilities of how to marry, how to pay tax, how to live in society, how to have contracts and to do business. Today when you look at Islamic law, The first section of Islamic law is called ibadat, that talks about the relationship between man and Allah. And usually when we talk about Islamic law, this is all we talk about, is how to fast, how to pray, how to do hajj, how to give khums. These are very important, but this is one half of the religion. The other half of this religion in terms of ahkam is mu'amalat, the relationship between man and society. That all of society should create contracts, relationships, engagements with all the other people in this world in the way Allah has prescribed. The fact is that until today, all of humanity has not submitted to enact Allah's laws altogether. If today this earth ended and we were taken to the hereafter, we stood in front of Allah on the day of judgment, and Allah turned and questioned us, "O people, I told you to enact your mu'amalat and business and relationship with each other like this. Why did you not do it?" Today the answer of humanity was, "Ya Allah, it was impossible. The regulations you gave us were so hard, it was no way for us to enact them in a society that didn't believe in you." We would say that Allah is unjust, na'uzu billah. He gave us commands that could not be fulfilled. People would not listen. They would not do what they were supposed to. So we would hold the excuse in front of Allah to say that, "Oh Allah, your religion was great in theory, but it had never been put in practice. We never saw it. How could we stand up and do something that there was no way to do it?" Therefore, Allah reserves a time on this earth where He will enact and show every human being in society that all mankind, from Adam until the day of judgment, I told you how to live in this world. If you would have followed me, this is what your world would have looked like. If you would have listened to the commands, here's all of the benefits you would have received. Therefore, the dawr of the Imam, the responsibility of the authority of Allah on this earth, is to make sure that a practical example will exist, a proof against us, that says that, "Oh people, if you listen to Allah, this is what the world would have looked like. Let me show you how to enact the teachings of Allah on this earth." Therefore, that proves that Allah will then have the proof against us. It was possible. You could have done it, you didn't listen. And because you didn't listen, you never achieved this process of seeing what it is that Allah wanted us to live like. The purpose of religion in every generation and time was to take all of humanity, live in the way that Allah wanted His creation to live, so that there was peace, harmony, equity, and benefit for all of society. But throughout society, throughout history, society has refused to follow the command of Allah. The goal of the Imam is to show us what it looks like when all of the rules of Allah are followed. How great would life be? You guys okay? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This opens up a new question. Okay, fine, Allah has to create a time where the world will do everything Allah said. Agreed. But why is this Imam alive now? And if this Imam is alive now, why can't I see him? This asks the question about the long life of the Imam. Is the long life of the Imam something natural, or is it a miracle? The reason this question, and I repeat this many times, if you can understand this question, you understand the Imam, and you start understanding the relationship with the Imam. You see, the complication is this. If the long life of the Imam is natural, then it makes sense that he's in ghaiba. Why? He needs to preserve his life, and his life is in danger. But if the life of the Imam is a miracle, then if Allah is going to protect him and keep him alive, why can't he be with us? Why can't he be here with us? Understanding the conflict between these two questions, some people come forward and say that no, the life of the Imam must be natural, because otherwise if it is Allah protecting him, and Allah keeping him alive, then the Imam should be in the middle of us. So the first assumption comes to say that no, the long life of the Imam is natural, the Imam's life is in danger, Allah does not preserve the life of the Imam, he has to preserve his life, so he's in ghaibah. And he's in occultation, we can't see him. There's a problem with this, because the Imam has not aged. To the extent they say that when the Imam will reappear, you will meet your Imam as a young man. Allah has dictated that a long life that is natural continues, even if slowly, along the natural path of what a human life is. Meaning that there is a continuous process of aging if the life is natural. Which is why when Allah describes about Nabi Nuh, فَلَبِثَ فِيهِمْ أَلْفَ سَنَةٍ إِلَّا خَمْسِينَ عَامًا. Nuh, Allah describes, preached for 950 years and lived for 3,000 years. But he didn't live 3,000 years as a young man. He aged throughout the entire process. So meaning that if the life of the Imam is natural and therefore he is in ghaibah, then his natural life should be such that he ages, and when we see him, we should see a person who has continued to age because his body is continuing down the natural process, however slowly. There should be natural aging. However, even in Khidr who is alive and has been alive for a very long time, the description is that he continues to age even if slowly through this process. But Imam Zaman doesn't age. So the explanation must be, then his long life is not natural, it's a miracle. Which now presents us with the second conflict. If his long life is natural, why is he not in the community with us? Why can't we see him? If Allah has guaranteed to keep him alive, then why don't we get to work with, sit with, see with, spend time with our Imam? The correct answer to this is to understand that the long life of the Imam and the ghaibat of the Imam are not connected. These are two different elements that take place simultaneously. Meaning that the Imam's long life is guaranteed by Allah. His ghaibah is not because of the danger to his life. His ghaibah, the Imam explains himself why he is in ghaibah. He explains and he says, I have been entered into ghaibah because I am the one who will bring justice to this earth. Therefore, I have asked Allah that I do not want to live under the hand of an oppressor until it is my time to bring justice. Remember something, each of the 11 Imams spent a time under the hands of an oppressor and bore that time with patience through the difficulty of being under an oppressor. Imam Ali, for 25 years, put up with the fact that his right was stolen. And he describes it himself in Shaqshaqiyya, it was as if a thorn was in my eye and a bone in my throat, but I was under the authority of the oppressor that they had stolen my right. Imam Hassan, 6 months into his khilafat, abdicates the position of political power. Imam Hussain spent 10 years under the oppressive authority of Muawiyah before he stood up against Yazid. Imam Zainul Abidin was imprisoned by the oppressors and prevented from speaking about the religion of Islam publicly because of the fear that he would cause another uprising. Imam al-Baqir was someone who in his life was forced to leave Medina and go to Sham, and oppressed by the Khulafa that he would be forced to travel from his home and leave his home at the oppression of these men. Imam Sadiq was refused from being able to stand up for authority and silenced and reclused himself from the process of society to teach the religion, so that he was kept away from this process. Imam al-Kadhim spent 14 years at least in the prisons of these oppressors. Imam Rada was forced to leave his family in Medina and migrate to Tus and was killed in Tus. Imam Jawad was forced to marry the daughter of the man who killed his father, and then she eventually poisoned him, and he was forced to leave his home. Imam al-Hadi is forced to leave Medina and is forced to go to Samarra, is poisoned and assassinated in Samarra. Imam al-Askari spent the entirety of his imamat in prison, with the exception of a year and a half. According to some, or even less than that in others. Imam al-Askari, the father of our 12th Imam, is one of the most oppressed and madloom aimma you can imagine. His imamat lasted only 6 years. And in those 6 years, they imprisoned him. They spied on him. They tortured him. And they assassinated him. One of the greatest regrets that we possess, and one of the greatest oppressions against the Ahlul Bayt, is what you see in Samarra. Samarra is different than every other place you go to visit an imam. Every other place you go to visit an imam is the place where they were buried, is a place away that they were taken to. Samarra, my 10th and 11th imam, are buried in their very own house. When you go to Samarra, you are going to the actual house of the Ahlul Bayt. That is the actual house in which my imam was born. If you realize this, the grief that comes to our heart is that in our own lifetime, they bombed the house of the imam twice. Twice. They went in and desecrated the house of the Ahlul Bayt. Do you know what makes it worse? Every other dharih that you go to, the dharih is above, the grave is somewhere below. Only in Samarra, the dharih and the qabr that you see in front of you is the actual grave. That's actually the grave of the imam. That's not a dharih placed over the grave and the grave is somewhere underneath. Now imagine that imam who is in ghaibah, who is prevented from interfering in the affairs of society, would visit the house of his father, would visit the grave of his grandfather, and witness the desecration of their graves, but was prevented from stopping that action. When we talk about the fact that I feel oppressed, that my imam is not with me, the oppression the imam experiences is much more azim than we feel. It's for us a difficulty to bear that the imam goes through such challenges. But a condition of his life is that he is present amongst the people to complete the authority of Allah over society. How? One of the reasons of the imam being alive today is that he is a witness to conditions of humanity from then until today. And he has witnessed all of the difficulties of society such that when Allah gives him the permission to reappear, humanity will submit to the authority because they will say, this one was present in all of our history and knows our affairs as if he is one of us. That the justice of Allah is such that the authority he places over the people is an authority who knows the trials of people, knows the difficulties of people, knows the experiences of the people as if he is one of them, so that humanity submits to his authority to go and present the religion of Allah on this earth. Which brings us to our next question. Will the imam fight everybody in this world? You guys are good? A little bit more patience, and then we'll finish this. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The promise Allah makes in the Quran, لِيُظْهِرَ دِينُهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْمُشْرِكُونَ. That Allah will make this religion the religion of the earth, وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْمُشْرِكُونَ. Even if the disbelievers detest this fact. Some have looked at this statement of the Quran and said because they detest this, that means that they will be forcibly subjugated to follow the religion of Allah. Let's talk about the physical reality of the fact that how would physical force be in subjugation of people? There are currently 8 billion people on this earth. There are approximately 1.8 billion Muslims on this earth. Let's say 2 billion. How many of those 2 billion believe in the authority of the Imam? Let's imagine that 15% of all Muslimin are followers of Madhab Ja'fari. That means that it's approximately what? From 2 billion, 200 million, 300 million people who follow the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. Of those 300 million, there are women and children. You're here, which is not wajib on you to fight. It's the remainder of those 300 million who, if the Imam is to fight, then the ones who automatically submit to his authority are maybe, let's be generous, 150 million. Do you imagine that 115 million will be the force of the Imam to subjugate 6 billion people on this earth? Does it make sense that subjugation is the process by which Islam is spread? Look at the example of Rahmatul lil Alameen Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Our Prophet did not spread the religion of Islam through forced subjugation. He did not spread the religion of Islam through attacking and killing people. Even to the extent the city of Mecca, which was notorious for trying to destroy the Prophet of Rasulullah. The miracle of Nabuwwat was that he brought the city of Mecca to the religion of Islam without the shedding of blood. Then it doesn't make sense that his grandson, who is going to teach his religion to the world, will spread that religion through the sword. If Rasulullah didn't do it, why would the one who perfects the message and perfects the example of the message on this earth do it through fighting and bloodshed? It didn't happen the first time, it won't happen now. Meaning the dawr of the Imam is not one of open bloodshed against all of humanity. So what does it mean, وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْمُشْرِكُونَ? That the mushrikeen and the disbelievers will hate this element. The explanation comes to say that this description of the fact that these enemies of Allah will hate the spread of religion is the example of someone who hates with their heart but still submits with their mind. I'll give you an example. A person who becomes sick and the doctor comes and he says, from now on you can eat no more of the foods that you love. No more fried foods, no more meats, all vegetables, no salt. Does the sick person like this? No, they dislike it. Why? They say, I enjoyed these things, but now I am forbidden from them. They say, I know that if I eat these things, it'll cause me harm, so they don't want to do it. But they say, I really enjoy it, so they have a desire to do it. The example of this is same, that the authority of Imam Zaman will be such that the enemies of Allah will hate it with their heart, but will acknowledge his authority with their minds to believe and accept that there is nothing better for us as a humanity and a people than this authority of Allah that has been established. Which is why one of the aspects of the governance of the Imam, may Allah hasten the reappearance of Sahib al-Zaman. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Is that the government of this Imam will be unlike anything humanity has seen before. That the Imam will establish such a governance that the world will say that we tried everything we could not find justice. The world and the people in the world will be so fed up with oppressive governments that everybody who wants to try to govern will have tried to govern and will have failed at the process and could not give justice to humanity, such that when the Imam of our time does it, humanity will not only appreciate it, they will say that we could not have created justice like him had we had the entirety of the world and the entirety of time to rule. We could never bring the earth to equity the way this son of Zahra will bring equity in this earth. Meaning that this society will be so hungry for justice They will be so absent and tired of oppression that they will be calling out that anyone who can give us justice, we will submit. This is why it will be the oppressors who will be the ones who are subjugated by the fact that their oppression will not work in society anymore. And humanity will clamor for the concept of justice. So the question is, if justice is the cornerstone of the government of our Imam, how do we prepare for the government of the Imam? We see the riwayah that explains to us, أَفْضَلُ أَعْمَالِ أُمَّتِي انتظار الفرج. That the best of affairs that a Muslim can perform in their life is intidhar al-faraj, the waiting for the coming of relief, the waiting of the fulfillment of the promises of the Quran. But this intidhar is not a passive intidhar. This intidhar is not sit back on your heels and wait. Rather, this intidhar is the active process by which, if the cornerstone of the government of my Imam is justice, then I need to introduce people to love justice. Today, people claim to love justice, but what they love is self-preservation. And they love that they should be treated better than others. Which is why, whereas there are times when we see oppression in the earth and we stay silent, we don't stand against that oppression. Why? Because it's not affecting me. It doesn't affect me. What do I care what is happening in another part of the world? What do I care what is happening to another ethnicity? The role of those waiting for the Imam is to teach society not to be selfish and self-centered, but to love justice in every instance and to want justice for every human being. And when the condition of humanity becomes that the priority is justice, not my nafs, then society will be ready to submit to the authority of the Imam. Understand how dangerous this selfishness is, that it caused the extremity of the oppression in Karbala. One of the questions you can ask yourself, why did the Imam have to present the sacrifice of a 6-month-old child? The answer is that if it was only soldiers that were present, you would say the army was justified in fighting against soldiers, and it was the responsibility of the soldier to execute his commands. But when the sacrifice of a 6-month-old child is presented, you ask and say, which soldier is it? Which army is it? Which authority is it that should have the right to kill a 6-month-old infant with the extreme of oppression that they kill the infant son of Abu Abdullah? They describe and say on the day of Ashura, when all of the soldiers were spent, when even Abbas had fallen in the field, Akbar had been martyred, Qasim had been killed, Abu Abdullah stood in front of the haram of the women with an army facing in front of him. And he called out, "Ala hal min nasin yansuruna?" Is there anyone to offer us assistance that would give protection to the haram of Rasulullah? They describe in this moment, the women began to cry inside of the tents. Abu Abdullah turned and said, "O ladies of Ahlul Bayt, Hussain is still alive. Why do you cry out?" Abu Abdullah entered the tents and he found that the ladies were circled around a crib, and in this crib lay the 6-month-old child of Abu Abdullah. The women complained and said, "Ya Abu Abdullah, this infant of yours who has not had food and water for so many days now, when we heard you call out for assistance, the child convulsed in the crib." You see, an infant of 6 months is fed every few hours. If a child that young does not eat for days, does not drink milk for days, they do not have the energy to move. The women cried because they said, "We saw him move. We imagined, oh Abu Abdullah, your infant son was in the convulsions of death, and we had nothing to comfort the infant with, so we began to cry. They said, "Oh, Abu Abdullah, see that maybe, if not for us, that maybe this army has some mercy on an infant, that they give him food or water or something." Abu Abdullah leaves the tents with his infant son covered under the cloak that he was wearing. Why? The heat of the sun of Karbala was difficult for an infant of 6 months to bear. So Abu Abdullah, in love for this infant, wanting to protect him from the heat of the sun, covered him and brought him in front of the army. The army, seeing that Hussain ibn Ali has brought something covered under his arm, covered under his cloak, imagine that Hussain has once again brought the Quran against us to debate with us, and we shall not listen to his debate. Until Abu Abdullah began his debate, and he said, "O people, if it is that you have found a problem with me and my belief, if it is that you find me in your opposition, and you have intended upon the spilling of my blood, the infants are innocent in this affair. I have with me this child, who now is in a condition that no matter if you give him water or not, the child will die anyway, because an infant thirsty for 3 days cannot continue to live. Abu Abdullah says the child will die anyway. I ask only that you don't let him die thirsty. Would that you give him a small amount of water. If your intention is that my lineage should be cut, even this child will die. There is nothing that will remain from him. Just give him some water." The reason we commemorate this child is that the greatest revolution that almost happened in the army of Umar as-Sa'd was the debate that happened when they saw the infant son of Imam Hussain. That soldier began to fight soldier in the army of Umar as-Sa'd. One would say, "Why not? It is an infant. Give the infant some water." The other would say that he is a child of Hussain. We are commanded to cut the lineage of Hussain. We will kill the child as well. And then debates would begin. Are you so heartless to kill an infant that cannot stand against you? And the other would argue, do you stand against the command of the Emir? And the army began to argue and fight amongst itself at the innocence and simplicity of the infant in the hands of Abu Abdullah. Abu Abdullah, to complete his proof, he went so far as to say, "If you worry that I will take some water from this child and drink it, I will put the child on the sands of Karbala. Take him yourself and give him some water." Oh, Abu Abdullah, what patience you possess. A moment ago the sun was too hot for Asghar, but for his sake you placed him on the burning sands of Karbala and stood away from this child. I imagine the heart of Hussain ibn Ali. Asghar, be patient a moment. You are burning from the sun. You are burning from the sand. I swear to you, my mother Zahra, Asghar, be patient. The army of Umar as-Sa'd continued to debate amongst themselves, refusing to give water to the child. Eventually, Umar as-Sa'd, looking at the fact that the army is turning upon itself, soldier is against soldier, do we give water? Do we refuse? He turned and he said, "Harmala, aqta' nizaa al-qawm," and the debate of the army. Abu Abdullah lifted the child and said, "Bear witness, people. You are the ones who are killing this infant with his thirst." Harmala looked to see. I wanted to kill the child. I wanted to end the debate. But how could I find an arrow that would hit such a small target as a 6-month-old child? He says, I concluded to take the largest arrow that I had, shoot it in the direction of this child, and that I would hit something that would end this debate amongst the people. There are some who in the poetic sense describe, Harmala would raise the arrow but not shoot. He would again knock his arrow but not shoot. He would again and again try, but he could not shoot the arrow. There is one description that says in a poetic sense, Harmala, what stopped you over and over again? He would say that I became embarrassed that I see small children and women watching the condition of this infant in the battlefield, that I should be the one who kills infants in a battlefield. Another poet would describe what took so long in this moment. Every time I would raise an arrow, I would see the example of Rasulullah standing with this infant, pleading with me to not attack his children, until eventually he found this false honor he possessed, raised an arrow that shot the little neck of Asghar. The neck was so small. The goal of an arrow is to make a hole. The arrow was so big. The neck of Asghar was so small. It didn't make a hole. He cut the neck of the infant from one side to the other, and the neck of the child was split. They describe in this moment, the infant who was thirsty for 3 days could not move, began to convulse in the arms of his father. They describe and say, Asghar moved in the arms of Hussain ibn Ali, the way a fish when it is taken out of water begins to flop. This would not compete. They said if you took a bird and you trapped a bird, the way it would flap its wings when it becomes trapped, the child flapped in the arms of Hussain ibn Ali. Oh, the heart of the son of Zahra. Abu Abdullah, how did you comfort this child as he convulsed in your arms? How did you have the patience to calm the infant as he died in your hands? They describe and say in the A'mal of the day of Ashura, Abu Abdullah proceeded towards the tents and then would retreat. He would again proceed toward the tents and then he would retreat. 7 times he would go forward and 7 times he would come back. I would tell you the debate. Abu Abdullah said every mother who offered a sacrifice was given the chance to bid farewell to her child. Rabab has presented a sacrifice, should have the ability to see her sacrifice. But if I bring such a small infant in front of the children who has been killed, maybe the children will die in the fear of what will happen to them in the battlefield. Eventually Abu Abdullah said, Rabab, come out of the tent. Bid farewell to your child. They describe and say that mother looks at her sacrifice, looks at the infant who has been split across his neck, and cried, Amithluka yanhar ya Asghar. Have they come to the affair that they go and they nahar such a small child? Abu Abdullah did something unique for this child. The day of Ashura, Abu Abdullah only made one grave. It was the grave of this infant. Rabab held the child. They went behind the tents. Abu Abdullah used his sword to dig a small grave. They describe and say why. Abu Abdullah knew after his shahada, the bodies would be desecrated. This child was so small, he did not want his body to be desecrated. So he dug a grave to bury the child. They describe how difficult this moment was in a poetic license. That we would say Hussain put his son in the grave. Fill the grave from the feet. Fill the grave from the legs. Fill the grave from the chest. We would say before he completed the grave, we would say Hussain would cry and complain, Asghar, your skin is so delicate. The sand of Karbala is so hot. How shall I put the burning sands on your delicate skin, my son? Abu Abdullah, you made that grave and left. But look and see the condition after your shahada. When all of the heads of the shuhada were collected, Shimr Mal'un called out, there is one who we have not collected. There is one who we need to take credit with the Amir for killing. Where is the body of the son of Hussain? They said Hussain ibn Ali buried the body. They went looking for the body in the sand. How did they look for this body? They took spears to the sand of Karbala. Oh Hussain, you wanted to protect your infant, but the enemy raised Asghar's body on a spear above them. They found the body of your infant in the burning sands of Karbala.
شاهدا
طفلنا خورده